Hi everybody, welcome back to my MetaQuest 2. We are of course back in Assetto Corsa and we're back in the lovely Nissan Skyline, as you can see here, and we're in Germany. We're at the Nürburgring, the public version of the Nürburgring, and the difference with this video is that instead of connecting my MetaQuest 2 to my gaming PC, which is playing Assetto Corsa wirelessly, we're using a USB 3 cable, and the reason for this is because it increases the bandwidth available to transfer the graphics from my gaming PC to my MetaQuest 2. Because obviously, when you're playing via Wi-Fi, even on a 5 GHz system, that's a lot less data that could be transferred at a time. Especially if, like me, your Wi-Fi router is quite a way away from where my headset is. You're really meant to have the Wi-Fi router in the same room as your headset, but that isn't practical. And what I found is with certain games that have long draw distances, such as driving games and flying games, or flying simulators, you get a muddiness in the distance, or with driving games, a little bit closer, noticeable on the road. So we're going to be doing a lap of the Nürburgring in our Skyline, and I'm just going to be kind of feeding back kind of my thoughts about how I kind of feel and the differences. I've done this a couple of times already, and the first things I can say is really what happens is the graphics are definitely better. The close-up graphics are about the same, in the cockpit, and the textures and things like that. But as you look into the distance, and I know it's difficult to see on YouTube, isn't it? Simply because of the size of the screen, and the resolution. They are better. They're less muddy. They're less fuzzy. Also, the tarmac, is less fuzzy and less muddy and less blurry as I look sort of into the distance. I'm not saying at this point this is incredibly crisp, because there's undoubtedly some more settings I could play around with the headset and with the how the headset looks at the graphics, and you can do things like you can change the rendering scale, so you can go like over 1, but I'm not really dead sure how that works at the moment, so I'm gonna wait a little bit before I play around with that. But straight away there's an improvement to crispness, clarity, I guess, and resolution that I get. As I say, it's not perfect. There is still a little bit of muddiness in distance, but I think that might be down to the fact that maybe I could whack up the graphic settings actually in the game at the moment. On my Assetto Corsa, I think I've got it set to high, rather than really high or extreme. And also, as I look into the distance in the road, sort of 30 to 50 meters ahead of me, I can see the details in the road and the triangles on the racing line a lot better than I could before, which is really good. And also, the other thing that I've noticed as well after doing this a couple of times was the responsiveness of the controls. Remember, I'm playing this on an Xbox controller, is better. So there's obviously less input lag. But I think specifically what it probably is, what I found is, and I've only really found this on Assetto Corsa, is that you do get a little bit of lag every now and again, which kind of causes a little bit of almost like rubber banding. And maybe there's like light versions of that happening, which means that the controls just don't feel as responsive. Now, undoubtedly, as I said in my other video, you could get used to that and you could respond. But also, in a way, I think it increases the immersion and the realism by having a lot more responsive control. I say a lot more. The difference is probably a hundredth, of a second, a millisecond kind of thing difference, but it does make that little bit of difference. And I know on this channel I said that with the wireless side of the MetaQuest 2, that's one of the massive quality of life improvements over with something like the MetaQuest 2, the fact that you can play PC VR games wireless. Playing with a wire, with a USB 3 wire, definitely is better. And I'll be doing a series of videos where, just like with this one, where I've previously played wirelessly, where I now play wired, and just talk about how I feel and kind of the improvement in that. One of the things that I did do that made this easier is I looked around the PC room and I kind of thought to myself, right, if the problem really with running a wired headset is the inconvenience of having to plug in and unplug and where the wire goes and stuff like that, I had a good look around and thought, right, where could... I've got to stop talking so I can stay on the racing line. And where could I put the wire so that it wouldn't be a convenience, you know, to unplug it and plug it when I was going from something like, you know, PUBG or DayZ, which I'm not playing in VR, to wanting to have a quick, you know, VR session in something like Microsoft Flight Simulator or Assetto Corsa or something like that. So what I did was I bought this really huge wire. I've got a 5-meter USB 3 cable, and that originally was just kind of dangling on the floor and was a bit of a trip hazard. But I've kind of looked at where I could put it, and I've got it sort of going around the edge of the room. And then I fed it through my gaming chair. So I'm very lucky in the fact I have a gaming chair. You know, gaming chairs have holes in the back of them often to put a strap through, normally for like the lumbar support. Well, I fed the USB cable through there. So that's really good because it means that takes the weight of the USB cable. Not the USB cables weigh much. But then it feeds into the headset, so I can't really feel the cable at all. And it also means that the cable, when I'm not using it, can be tucked away, out of the way, and doesn't cause the same hassle. I guess one of the problems I always had was that the only other VR headset I had was the PSVR from PlayStation 4. And if you had one of those, you know it was a right pain to set up because you had loads of cables, big, thick, heavy cables that were hanging off you, that you could feel them dragging you down. And it just wasn't fun to set up and use unless you had a really big dedicated space. But doing it this way, you know, I could definitely get used to this. And looking into the distance, this is looking very, very good indeed, and is significantly better than when I was doing this over Wi-Fi. I'll put a link in the description below this video to the wireless version of this run. And by all means, I'm not saying that it's unplayable when you're doing it over Wi-Fi. Far from it. But I'm just saying that if you can get over the logistics of putting a long wire from your gaming rig to the headset, then that's something you should look at. Also, I would say is that if you're watching this and you're thinking about getting a MetaQuest 2, this is a fantastically cheap way of getting into VR, you know, sim racing. You know, if you think Assetto Corsa, a game from 2013, I'm going to say, at the moment, at the time of recording this video, Assetto Corsa is £1.50 on Steam. The MetaQuest 2 is £200 or $200. A long USB cable is, you know, £15, probably $15. And of course, I'm using an Xbox controller, which I know is an anathema to lots of sim racers. They're saying you can't use an Xbox controller, but it's all I've got. I have not got any space for a wheel. I just can't justify getting a wheel because I just don't know where I'll put it, or pedals. I've got a HOTAS system for Flight Simulator and L2 Sturmovik, and that's as far as I can go. But this is pretty special, if you ask me. This is worth the price of admission, this. Even, you know, with no other cars on the track and just going around. When I talk about, I don't know if you've seen my L2 Sturmovik video where I talk about how VR takes you beyond video games into another space, you know, beyond PC sims. You know, we're going somewhere else with this. I know you're saying, well, yeah, you're going to virtual reality, which is true, but the mind space that it can take you to is, for me, is really intriguing. Really, really is intriguing indeed. Especially, I think, with me, is if you combine it with something historical. So, if I was doing this with historical Grand Prix cars driving around, then, you know, we start to go into some really interesting mind spaces indeed. So, going back to the subject in hand, playing the MetaQuest 2 via a USB link to my gaming PC is definitely improvement over Wi-Fi. The graphics definitely are crisper, and I'm going to have to do a lot more work, I think, looking into how you can optimize the output from the gaming PC, well, from the game and the gaming PC to the headset to increase things like the refresh rate, because I think I'm still running at 72 Hz and where obviously you can go up to 120 Hz on the MetaQuest 2. And then we have the frame rate of the game, but also, you know, the clarity of the game. I think it's probably going to do with things like sharpening as well. But this is, and I think probably one of the big changes is the responsiveness of the controls as well. Even on this Xbox controller, it just feels that little bit more sharper than it did when I was doing it over the Wi-Fi connection. Obviously, games like this, driving games, this is really where that sort of thing matters. You know, if you're playing like an adventure game, where Twitch control responses aren't really required, then that's much different. You know, that's much more suited to a wireless connection. Where with this sort of thing, I guess even more than a flight simulator. You know, a flight simulator, you don't really need Twitch responses, do you? Because everything has to be a lot more considered. With a driving game, where you know it's a millisecond can mean the difference between hitting, you know, the brakes at the right time and not. It really does make a difference, and I'm enjoying this immensely. I really am. Just bear in mind that with these videos as well, if you're looking at the video quality, I am recording these on the MetaQuest 2, so the headset itself is recording the gaming footage, which means it's got to compress it a lot, and then YouTube does its thing with compression as well, doesn't it? But so far, this is so addictive as well. This is so addictive, and I think what you're probably going to find on the channel is there's going to be a lot of videos about driving VR games, because it's something so cool. Well, there we go. So we're coming up to finish the lap. That has been fun. This has been very good. It just makes you smile. It really does. So if you've got a PC that's capable of running VR, so look at the minimum specs for Assetto Corsa, for example, to run VR. Here we go. Start slowing down now. And you've got $200 or £200 to spare to spend on something like a MetaQuest 2. And you know, probably another 20 quid to spend on a USB cable, then I think this is something that maybe you should think about, because it is a whole lot of fun. So there we go, parking up. I love the fact that you park up in the car park. There we are, parked in the car park of the Norderschleife, I think it's called, or the public part of the Nürburgring, and that is a whole lot of fun. So anyway, hopefully this video has been useful. Hopefully it's been informative. If you found it useful, hit like, if you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and of course, I'll see you again soon.